Hello and welcome back to Nadya's Identity Files. I have with me the lovely and talented Sonia Barrett. Thank you for being with us today.
Wow, thank you so much for inviting me.
I appreciate it. We're going to have a lot of fun. But first, you guys, I do have to let you know that unfortunately Dr. Reid will not be with us today. Hopefully in the future, but no worries. We have plenty to discuss with Sonia. But first, I want to know a little bit more about your journey. You do a lot of great things. You're an author, producer, and speaker, just to name a few of the hats that you wear. And your focus is to bridge the gap between science and spirituality. How did you get started in this path?
Well, let's see. I think my story might be interesting, but there are probably people out there that are going, I'm familiar. Many years ago, I went through a divorce. I was going through a divorce, and I had been in a very horrific marriage. And I think at that point, I just needed to understand, what the heck is this thing we call life? You know, it was like, what is this? And what just happened? It was like 14 years. It's like, what happened? So that's actually where that all began for me, is I just needed to understand more. It wasn't about sitting around, placing blame or feeling sorry for myself. It was not about that. It was about really just trying to dive in and figure this out. And I knew that there was a way to connect more deeply, not just through books, but to connect on a much deeper level.
So you were trying to find your spiritual footing, if you will, in a way.
Yeah, in a way I was trying to find my spiritual footing, but even then I was trying to understand, what do we even mean by that?
Right. So, a lot of these words and phrases, they come with so much abstraction.
Exactly. It's just I think we use a lot of words so loosely, and people have so many different definitions in their own head. Yeah. So for me, I've spent all these years actually just kind of taking things apart, and I'm not really a woo-woo person. So
I've been hearing that phrase a lot, like woo-woo.
Woo-woo. I mean, sometimes even the people that say they're not woo-woo, they're woo-woo.
Pretty woo-woo, yeah.
They're really woo-woo. But anyway, so for me, I'm kind of more of your, right to the point kind of person. So that's kind of where I'm coming from with everything that I do.
Interesting. So quantum physics, which I've always been fascinated in quantum physics and metaphysics, of course, very different fields of study. Metaphysics being more philosophy, I guess you could say. How did that come into the mix?
In this quest, I did not know about the term, the words quantum physics. Back then, I really didn't. I mean, I'm coming at this raw. I mean, I didn't know how to meditate. I really did not know how to do any of those things. I mean, I came from a church background. I grew up in the church as a child. For me, without I don't think we want to necessarily get into that kind of depth, but I will say this much.
Oh, yes,
much.
We do.
We do?
This is Nadya's Identity Files. That's where we go as deep as we can go in 30 minutes or whatever time.
Gosh. Well, for me, I actually started to discover meditating. This is on my own, going through this process, and people that might be listening who are familiar with me might know my story. But so I started out on my own doing this thing, sitting in a lotus position and breathing, and one day, to make a long story short, one day I had this incredible breakthrough that just sort of took me into this whole other realization. It's almost like seeing the backdrop of reality of all of this. Everything became more of the stage. Yeah. And I was seeing more, that there was more that was beyond all of this. And I started writing. So information started coming to me. No, I wasn't channeling. I say that I was just so open that an understanding of things, and we all have that ability when we pay attention and we really tune in and we allow that. And so I trusted that, and I started writing. And as I wrote, I realized I was writing about some things that were sciencey. I had never taken physics ever in my life.
Right.
And so over time,
What did you find that you were writing that was science?
Back then, I can't tell you specifically now, but color,
Yeah.
light, sound. I was understanding things about frequencies. I mean,
Right.
a word I didn't use before, vibration. That everything had a frequency pattern to it.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. Maybe I didn't necessarily write it in those words, but
Right.
that's what I was discovering.
Interesting.
And
how were
you
you
know,
discovering that?
like I said, it was just coming to me, and I would write, and then one day, there was a period of time there where I suddenly was sort of pulled towards maybe a book or so. I was going by a bookstore. Things started to show up to confirm. Let's just say
Interesting.
what I was writing.
I love it when that happens.
Things started showing up. You know how it jumps out at
Yeah.
you, and it's like, oh, I was
Like a
writing
heightened
this.
awareness.
Exactly. And that's when I started to sort of open up to realizing this idea of quantum physics. I think I read the Dancing Woolly Masters, but I don't think that was. I think that was a while later. That was a good while down the road that I looked at that, and that's a great book, I would say, for helping people to understand quantum physics. But
What is it called again?
It's called the Dancing Woolly Masters.
Oh.
Yeah,
I like that title.
It's really what's his name? Zukov, the last name. But it's a really well-written book. It's a great book, and it's grounded because it's giving you science, but it's simplified because he's not a scientist, but the way he presents it, so that people understand more about this space we occupy,
Right.
this thing we call life and this environment on a more scientific level. So that's how I started to expand on that kind of information, and then hence the book. Then eventually I wrote the book.
So, and which book are you referring to?
The holographic canvas, which is this is the 10-year anniversary of that book.
Oh,
actually.
hey, happy!
Yeah,
Go buy it, y'all.
There's a hardcover coming out later on, but yes, it's. If you go on Amazon, yes, the reviews, I'm kind of like amazed.
That's fantastic.
As to how all of that evolved. And I did not know I was writing a book at the time. It's sort of another evolution in my life because I kind of flow.
Yeah.
I kind of just let
Just
things.
go with the flow.
Yeah.
What's your sign?
Aries.
You're an Aries. Okay.
Very fiery.
Very fiery.
Yeah.
Yes.
But so that's what happened. So the book is loved. I mean, I see people with their books. I go to a conference or so, and their book is just highlighted all over. And it's a book you do have to read a few times because it's packed with.
If you were
information.
asked like what the overarching premise is of that book, what would you say?
I would say that the book definitely opens you up to possibilities. It opens up. The mind is what I'm hearing anyway. Okay, let me say this. I've spoken to other people who have seen like what the bleep do we know. I've spoken to people who said, "Gosh, I didn't quite get all of it, but when I read your book, it's like boom, I got it." So my book opens your mind up to not just one narrow way of thinking, but to realize that we live in an ocean of potentials. That's all that we have are potentials, we have possibilities, and that and there are various choice points, and we're stepping into various possibilities based on the choices that we make, which are based on our belief system. So all of that is explained, and then there is science in there. It's simplified, but there are lots of components in there.
Yeah, because I think what's really problematic in our society is the idea of just like the binary choices that you have. Either you go this way or you go that way.
Right.
And then in your path to getting to either the black or the white has usually very linear. At least that's the expectation.
Sort of it's what I like to refer to as programming. So that's something I speak about a lot is the programming of humanity, which I think I did a workshop sometime on that, but I'm known for talking about that. And that was something I began to realize. That was such an eye-opener for me to realize, whoa, life is actually sold to us. Reality is packaged and sold to us.
Yeah.
What we will believe, what we will think. is sold to us, and you'll be surprised that pretty much a majority of your choices are going to be based on that package that you have from, birth to death. And that's the reason why science is constantly discovering things. That should be a clue. It's like 50 years ago what science didn't know, and then suddenly today they change their mind on something. That should let you know that nothing is static like we believe. We live in a very pliable, plastic experience, and so is the brain. It's also very pliable. We're pliable. Nothing, it has to be set in stone in that manner. So when you're fighting somebody over a belief, you really want to stop and examine where did this even where did this belief
where
even
does
come
belief
from?
come from? Why are we so attached to it? I mean, what I've found in doing this show is like some people's belief systems, it takes over their identity.
Yes.
And more often than not. And it's like you were mentioning, the plastic experience, we have to understand that our identities are continually evolving.
Absolutely.
And we have many identities within like one overarching
and
identity,
it's okay.
like a prism. It's great.
Yeah, and it's okay. And this is, I think you said something really, what you said is perfect, because people need to know that it's okay. You don't have to be stuck in the box because it's safe. This is the only reason why we do that.
Right.
Because it's the known. People like the known. It's the unknown, and the unknown is to allow yourself to expand or be something that maybe you weren't yesterday. So it's the safety of it, and the only reason why we seek safety is because of the packaged ideas that we've been sold, and we want to remain within the construct of that package.
And speaking of packaged ideas, you talk a lot about that in your documentary film, The Business of Disease, and the programming and packaging of medicine and sick culture.
Right.
You know what? Why don't we check out the trailer real quick?
It is a trance tone of voice that they're using. They have pictures of people dancing, and everybody's happy, and yet they're taking 10 pills.
The Business of Disease.
Just as we market, disease in this country and pharmaceutical medication to the overuse and misuse of it, we've also marketed and brainwashed doctors.
The conscious and intelligent manipulation of the organized habits and opinions of the masses is an important element in democratic society. Edward Bernays.
So our whole life is being conditioned by ideas, by theories. And it's given to us as if it is fact.
We're so outward directed. We are looking for the fix, the next diet, the next cleanse, the next things we should eat and shouldn't eat. It's so confusing, people don't know what they should do about food anymore.
It is more important to know what sort of person has a disease than to know what sort of disease a person has. Hippocrates.
Your passion changes everything. What do you believe in your internal structure? It's going to affect everything that you do.
The notion that fear is imprinted, yes, but it's not imprinted without pleasure. You see, it's like the two sides of the same coin.
The Business of Disease.
The Americans are the best in the world when it comes to marketing. They could sell anything.
Putting fluoride in the water. Does people know that that's what Nazi Germany did to dumb down the prisoners and to keep them subdued?
The Business of Disease.
During that 20-minute break, you're giving the mind, body, the inner brain an opportunity to turn on the appropriate genes, to make the proteins, to make new brain tissue.
That's where your emotional system is in the brain. And then the cortex goes right on top of that. And so everything in the brain is attached to emotions.
But still, the specific traumatic experience that led to the fear is often memorized in the muscles.
When you allow the body to take a deep breath, the brainwaves shift, the blood going out of the heart up into the brain.
The business of disease.
Very important that we start asking deeper questions, especially when it comes to taking care of our own being, our own bodies, being able to be authentic in our approach to our life.
Welcome back from that epic, 3-minute experience of your trailer. When did you film the movie?
When did I film it? Well, it's over a period of time. Maybe took a couple of years, starting and stopping with interviews. The idea actually came in 2010. And then after that, 10, 11, 12, by 2014, it was done. But if you're familiar with film, you can go through a million edits. You're constantly editing and so yeah. But I would say somewhere around there, maybe 2014.
And what inspired you to move forward with this project?
Now this is where it gets touchy.
Let's get touchy.
I wrote an article called "The Marketing of Breast Cancer: The Pink Ribbon Agenda," and I'm sure your audience knows probably by now that I'm one of those people that everybody else goes right and I'm going I'm going left and I'm going right.
Right.
Because I question everything. But anyway,
I think we need to.
Yeah, we do. That's the whole reason why everything is so crazy right now, because people don't think.
I mean, I'm Jewish. That's what we do. We question everything.
You question everything. You have to. You should. But I wrote that article after going in the store enough times, and I got really tired of being asked if I wanted to donate to breast cancer awareness. And I just really thought about it, and I thought, gosh, this is crazy. I feel like they're selling us cancer as opposed to anything else. And I thought, what is this pink ribbon? The pink ribbon is a symbol. I thought, what is it doing to our minds? And unlike everything else, because our first language as humans is symbols. Language is symbols. All our letters are symbols. We identify everything, by symbols. And so that was my question. What is it doing to us? How are we interpreting this?
How are we internalizing it?
How are we internalizing it? Right, exactly. And our children and little girls and boys and everybody. We are living now in a society where that's become fear. It's a fear factor, but it's also the norm. We're marketed that the possibility exists that you may get it.
Yeah.
And then there was pink ribbon Barbie dolls. They had the pink ribbon Barbie, and then the toilet paper with pink ribbons on it, and then the NFL store with all this pink stuff everywhere. And so anyway, that's what initiated. And I thought, you know what? I'm gonna. Well, the article took off, first of all.
Yeah.
All across the internet, and people even who had breast cancer and had healthy breasts removed, because the article talks about
Where
that.
was it originally published?
It was on my site, but people took it, posted on their site, and got posted all over the place, because it's a pretty long article, and it goes into even that with celebrities and paraded in front of us, and why that happens, and the healthy breasts being removed, encouraged to be removed, and all of that. So I wanted to get a few voices, that experts, not just me saying it, but experts, to really talk about more of this, the emotional part of it and so on. And so I was creating, I thought, a YouTube video. That's kind of what I thought I was creating. And then it just sort of turned into this, and before I know it, I was like, wow. It looks like I'm going to be doing a feature film, and so that's kind of how it evolved into
When you were speaking with one of the experts, did they say, hey, you should make this into a full-length documentary, or did you just kind of realize, wow, this is something that I need to move forward with on a larger scale?
Actually, what happened is I had so much great footage. I mean, the interviews were amazing. it was very hard to cut it to like 15 minutes or 30 minutes. It was not going to be possible. And actually going into maybe the second interview or so, I realized that I better make sure that it was shot well. It was shot properly. Thank goodness I did that. But it was really done out of the fact that there was just too much great footage to make it into a short whatever.
Right.
And so that's and then we had to cut it and finally got it down to, I think it's 74 minutes. It was much longer.
Wow.
Yeah. It's just amazing content. And it's not just about what's being done to us, but the premise of the film is to really encourage people to take responsibility for themselves, to take back ownership of themselves, and not rely on the system to fix things for you. The system doesn't care about you. You have to care about you.
So you're shedding light on how some of these movements and organizations, while seemingly well-meaning, often may, in some cases, do more harm than good because of kind of like a type of indoctrination. Almost. Right.
It's
like cultish.
Yeah, that's a good word. Cult and the word culture. I mean,
that's where that's derived from.
That's exactly. But we live in a very cultish experience, and we like trends, and disease can be a trend, and people don't realize that. And right now, yes, that is a trend right now. Cancer is a trend now. If somebody says, well, how can you say cancer is a trend? Look at all that's going on. Yes, there's a lot going on in terms of our food, in terms of the environment, but at the same time, the mindset is also super important. But everything, based on everything we were saying earlier, and the possibilities and what options are there, and that you have various choice points, and it's how we handle our lives.
There's also not enough discussion about basic preventative measures we can take.
Absolutely.
To do our best to prevent cancer cells from getting out of control. I mean, we all have the potential to have our cells turn into cancer cells.
Anything at all. And it's not necessarily hereditary, because people think, it ran in the family, but it's lifestyle more than anything else, whether it be emotional lifestyle or even the way that you eat, the family has been eating. So it's a variety of things that need to be taken into consideration, and that's where we take responsibility. That's where we take ownership. We don't put it off on, which is easier to get away with it, not having to take charge of yourself, to go, it ran in the family. No, you have a choice. How am I living? What is my emotional life like?
How am I going to try and self-heal?
Yeah.
I mean, of course, I do think that certain things are out of our control, but that doesn't mean that we can't try our best to induce a better holistic experience for ourselves.
Absolutely. No, I agree with you. There are times when there are things, and even that goes very deeply. We could spend hours talking about that.
We have some time.
Talking about that, our childhood experiences, and, what follows in our, emotional bloodline, and they're even realizing that now, not just with epigenetics, I forgot what the other one is, but to realize that trauma is recorded, from, could be your mother's situation, life, those kinds of things. It's not just disease, but dis-ease. But it's the emotional things that are recorded, because that's dis-ease as well.
Yeah.
And
that obviously correlates to the topic of identity. And it's like, how do we prevent ourselves from just moving along with, okay, well, this is my identity, this is my background, it is what it is.
Yes.
And rather than say, you know what, I'm going to step away from that, and I'm going to take some time to reflect on what I'm doing and see how I can improve myself.
And research. And research.
I think there's so much, there's a lot of ubiquitous lethargy as well. And dissonance between like the idea of being our better self and just going through the motions.
Absolutely. And also, and this is not to say that Western medicine doesn't have its place. Everything has its place. But I think we also are in a society where we are programmed to believe that there are all these other forces or people outside of us that know so much more about what's good for us, and so the doctor knows more, and it's not all the time. I've seen many situations where the doctor, no, that was not the thing to do.
Oh yeah.
But so we have to go, okay, well, this is a human being. The doctor is a human being. They're doing the best that they can in many cases. So what can I do for myself? How can I be sure that maybe these are the right choices or options for me?
I love that you mentioned the Susan B. Komen symbol, because that makes me think of, have you read Carl Jung's Book of Symbols?
No, but I know of it.
It really digs into just how much we internalize these different symbols from very young, very young onward.
Pretty crazy. I mean, the UPS truck is coming, or whatever, FedEx or whatever. Just so many things that are so normal and unnoticed because it's normal. You don't even have to see the letters to know the colors that's what it is.
Here comes the UPS truck.
Exactly. And it's like that with pretty much everything. That's why branding, certain kinds of branding work so well. We see the arches.
Absolutely.
We know, boom, what it is. We know what's implied. It's the implication behind the symbols that our brain, picks up.
Right.
And decodes and interprets, and whatever the intention is behind the symbol, eat more hamburgers, eat more whatever, there it is.
Right.
So, we've got to start waking up and taking back charge of who we are.
So this whole journey that you've been on, how has this contributed to the evolution of your identity, or identities, I guess I should say?
It's an interesting question. Because I continue to discover more about who I am, what's possible, and I realize that there is no final analysis to myself. And that's why when somebody says, "Oh, what do you do?" I'm always like, right now
question.
It's like right now. Well, right now I'm an author. I'm doing this, but I don't limit myself to any one particular thing. And I realize that I'm in this constant, ongoing state of discovery, and I love that. So I don't have to be a specific thing, which is what we're taught.
Yeah.
Choose something. Choose a profession.
What's interesting, it's like when people ask me that, or I observe people asking others that, it's like I know that as soon as they get that answer, they're immediately they're coming up with feelings
they're categorizing
or ideas.
you.
Exactly.
Yeah,
well, this person is this or that.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's like when I tell them that I do X, Y, and Z, and it's been a journey, and it's kind of like, as we were talking about, a more plastic, if you will, description.
Right.
Of myself and what keeps me busy. It's like kind of, it takes people aback, because it's not like just, well, I'm this.
Oh yeah. It's like you do all that because that's the programming since we were little. What do you want to be? That's the question. What do you want to be? That immediately means I have to pick one thing. Yeah. And I didn't raise my children like that. They were taught that you can do more than one thing. So which they're like that, but so that's the whole thing, is getting away from that, breaking that mold, that model that's been set for everybody, and just going, I don't have to be. It's like waking up from the sleep of this Borg kind of behavior and mentality.
Do you have people come to you who say, "Can you help me break free from that's the certain type of thinking," and then you take them through like certain exercises, or do you just say, "Read my book"?
Read my book, go away. No, I do consultation, but a lot of times the people that come to me are people who have been looking at my work for a while, and they know that there's no chaser on it. It's just like boom. It's like, do you want to really change? Because I'm not going to give you like fluff stuff. We're like, you know. So so I get those kinds of people who have been, they probably read my book, or they've seen my videos on YouTube, or they've seen me at a conference or taken workshops or something like that. And I would say, yes, if anybody wants to do a consultation with me, I do encourage them to go to YouTube and see some of what I talk about, because it is in your face. There is no me going, no sugarcoating. I'm so sorry for you that's happened. It's because that's not helping. That doesn't really.
I mean, when I work with people who have like a big marketing hang up, or just hang up generally, which is interesting, because I do notice that when people come to me initially for marketing strategy or whatever, what happens is I end up kind of life coaching them as well, which, I tell them, like, unless you have a clear idea as to why you're doing what you're doing and a clear purpose behind it, no marketing strategy will save you.
It's so true. It's all, we try to get away from ourselves, but it's all interlinked. And for example, when you said that, there are people who even with choosing a career, they realize, I only chose it because of this reason as a child, or somebody, my parents said something, or somebody said this. And what my work is, what I do, I don't even know, sometimes I don't even like calling it my work, but what I do is I really just get you to see why you are living the life that you're living. I'm not just telling you, but I create an environment that you go, this is why, and I have not liked this. Okay, so if you don't like it, then I help you to give yourself permission to own the fact that you might not like the relationship you're in, or the job that you're in. And a lot of times people don't know how to give themselves permission, because social programming, you feel bad.
There's always excuses, like the biggest one that I hear, and you probably have heard this as well, is the issue of time. I just don't have time. I don't have time. There's no way I can do this. There's not enough hours in the day. And I'm like, well, I mean, think in your mind, like, times that you're sitting doing something that isn't so productive or fruitful, or where you're not really feeling so good. Do you think you can cut those out or reduce them? And it's like, hello, time is a construct, and we can mold it and work with it in whatever way suits us ultimately. I mean, of course, like, we're under the calendar, and we're under the hour and the minute and the second, but at the same time, we can still make it work for us.
We can, and I think people do according to what they want to do, and we find ways to sabotage ourselves.
Marvin's bringing up images of clocks everywhere.
It's true. But we do find ways to sabotage ourselves into and talking ourselves out of doing something. And one of the things I realized, believe it or not, sometimes people are afraid that they might be successful.
I talked about that last week, actually. With two of my other guests. It's like the big, either the fear of failure or the fear of success.
Exactly, that's true. And then so then you have to get to the root of it, which is one of the things. Obviously, that's what I do with helping them, is to get to the root of that. Well, first coming to the realization of, I'm doing this because I really not sure I want to be successful. Why are you afraid of being successful? Why are you afraid of failing? What does failing mean for you? You know, when you conjure up the idea of failing or succeeding, what pictures come into your mind about that? And a lot of times we have this topical explanation about things. We don't dive in. It's just topical, like you just said. I don't have enough time. Well, what does that mean for you? How do you break that down? What do you mean when you say you don't have enough time?
I'm like, I say generally to them, like, can you break it down actually, like, in hours and minutes of how much ideally would you like to have? I'm like, because I'm pretty sure that there's times you might be on social media or doing something that isn't so
but that's important
meaningful. Oh, so important. But I'm guilty of it too. We're all guilty of it to a degree.
Gosh,
and
but you got to know to pull yourself away.
Quite often, it's like I have to realize, I probably in one day maybe I didn't tackle nearly as many things as I could have because I had this in my hand and I was checking on emails and checking on messages, thinking, it's that idea of FOMO, fear of missing out.
Oh yeah.
But at least I'm in touch with that. I'm like, all right, shut it off.
I do that too.
You'll be okay. These people will be okay.
I think when you're in business in particular, maybe that's what we tell ourselves, but I think we've all just gotten addicted to checking our emails, and but then I tell myself I'm checking in case somebody has a problem with a product or something. Exactly. But even if they did, they'd still be okay if I didn't see it. So,
and also I think that when you're in like a giving profession, which obviously you're giving a lot of information, advice, and support to people, as am I. It's like we often are in giving mode, and that sometimes can be problematic and hurt ourselves and even the other parties.
Right.
Which I have to remind myself of that a lot.
Yeah, you do have to pull back, and I do have my time, my shut off time, where I'm like, okay, well, I'm good, I'm done.
Yeah.
Pull back, and I think especially even if you work in a regular job, a corporate job, it is that break, that taking that break, which is the film talks about. That's so important. It's taking that break because your brain, it's like your whole being is like a computer reboots. You know how it just does automatic save.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, it needs to do that, but what happens is we override it with drinking coffee, or we find ways to override the natural rebooting process that needs to happen. And sometimes I find that when I push to get things done, I actually get less done.
Yeah. Oh, that happens to me a lot. And I'm somebody that has a big problem with pulling back and taking time for myself, because it's like I do have that grinding mentality.
Oh yeah.
And I know,
we both do.
It comes from childhood, it comes from self-imposition, it comes from a lot of different things. But it's like, I'm like, hello, if you don't take a moment to unplug, go on a run, just shut this stuff off, you're not going to get anything done anyway.
Yeah. Well, plus especially if your people are up late and they're trying to work, and I told my son that, it's like, that's not working for you. You're better off getting up super early.
I find that is better for me.
Yeah, because you're fresh.
I'm a night owl at heart.
Yeah.
When I make myself wake up early, I am so much more productive. I feel like, wow, I tackled X, Y, and Z already. It's not even 11 in the morning.
You get so much more done in an hour than sitting there forcing yourself for 3 hours. You're getting
midnight.
Less done.
Yeah,
because you can't think. You're not clear. So that's why I shut off. I won't work past a certain time. I would rather get up early, and I hike generally in the mornings. I'm a hiker, so I get up and I hike really early, because that clears my mind, my body.
Right.
And so I think that's important, that we have something,
an outlet
that works. Plus you're really also picking up so much of the static electricity from your computers and everything around you.
And I'm like glued half the time. So I'm like,
Exactly.
Right.
So am I. I'm in front of my computer a lot. So, but I find that I start getting a little agitated.
Yes.
Yeah. If you force it, and you're probably like me, where you're like, oh, just let me do this one more thing. Just let me do this one more thing. And then I'm like, okay, I can't do it. I gotta get up.
Right. I'm like, gotta get up, gotta walk away, gotta read a book. And I've been trying to do like a nightly reading practice as well, because I think it's better than like binge watching Netflix before bed. And you're like, then you just stay up into the night. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different things that we can do. Wow.
Go walk in the grass.
Walk in the grass.
Yeah, rub your feet in the grass. Gets rid of the static electricity buildup too.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
What if that grass has a lot of pesticides on it?
Well, the grass, I know in my backyard, there's no pesticide on it. But
what if you're in an apartment complex? There's just a little patch of grass off to the side, and
yeah, but typically, yes, if you're walking without your shoes on the ground, all that stuff is away. And there's all kinds of technologies now too that you can use in your house to help to reduce that kind of static electricity and EMF waves and stuff like that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I can't believe it's already 11:57. Speaking of time,
yeah,
we just flowed through.
This was really fun. Yeah.
Well, feel free to shout out any projects or initiatives or books that you have upcoming to the audience, so they can keep an eye out. Your website is up on the screen, so they know where to find you.
Awesome. Oh, where is it?
Oh, no. You won't see it. It's not on our screen. It's not our clock screen that we're seeing, but it's on the screen for the audience. They see us. They see your website.
Cool. All right, so my website is therealsoniabarrett.com. So that's one website. That's my main website, but you can find out pretty much everything about me. It's got a lot on there. And then the documentary website is thebusinessofdisease.com. You can actually also see the film. You can stream the film there, video on demand, or you can buy the DVD there. And there's a book that goes with the film called Health and Inside Job and Outside Business, and it's a chapter written by everybody in the film. And you'll also see all the other platforms that the film is available on some television and digital platforms, and all of that information is there. And all my books, you can find those on therealsoniabarrett.com.
Or on Amazon, right?
Or on Amazon, right? On Amazon, and pretty much any platform, but at least on the website, you know what the books are that are available. And my most recent one is a handbook called Simple Ways to Step Outside of Your Comfort Zone.
Oh, I might need
Letting go of an outdated life. And it's a 7-day. It's a 7-day program. It's really interesting, and it walks you through this whole process.
That's awesome.
Yes.
Well, thank you again so much.
Thank you so
I had
much.
a blast,
I did
and
too.
I will see you guys next week.
All right.